Hi, it's Dwyer. November 3rd, 2025. Always 1776.com, a free site. Also, Dwyer Private Equity. .blogspot.com, a free site. Nothing I say in this video should be construed as investment advice. I want everyone here to think for themselves. Your operating assumption, if I mention a stock or an ETF or any investment vehicle, is that I may be interested myself in owning that investment vehicle, or I may already own it. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, this morning, I was online. I'm part of an email group of people I went to school with years ago. And everyone is, looking forward to this election cycle. You have a lot of people in that email group that have very strident political views. Let's just say that people feel that we're in some kind of fringe era where, the status quo is ruled by madness. Not a lot of fans of the administration. And, they feel that if the right people with the right personalities get elected to governorships, that somehow they're going to have the power to change the status quo and make things better for everyone, right? The public sector is king. If someone cares about the poor and they get in office, they can somehow change everything structurally. The private sector is secondary. They need to be regulated, right? This is the status quo. In this email group, I would argue this is the status quo all over the country, right? Well, folks, I'm going to take the opposite view here, right? Let's talk about the illusion of choice here in this election with a specific example. Okay, I need for people to understand that there's a point of view. It's one I hold. I'm a libertarian, right? That believes in markets more than politicians. That believes that the real power out there comes from supply and demand. That believes that past bills eventually become due and actually limit future choices. Maybe you live in this world. Understand, we all live in different worlds. I hear my friends, I have a couple of friends who are very excited that Mondani is going to be the next mayor of New York City. And as someone who took the bus and train 2 hours each way to get to high school, right? I was raised in Queens. I went to Bronx High School of Science, Mondani's alma mater, right? I can't even imagine, as someone who, when he hopped on the subway on his way to school in the late 70s, would often, being on the subway at 7:15 a.m., would see homeless people in the train who had been there for hours. I can't even imagine what free bus rides are going to be like, right? The buses are going to be mobile homes for homeless people. You're going to hop on the bus, you're going to look at people who have not gotten off the bus for hours, for several trips. And if you're, living in an area with mass transit, if you're living that life, it's a mess. Well, let's give an example of the illusion of choice in an area. Folks, just imagine a state having had an effective governor a generation ago who tried to, God forbid, take on the teachers' union, who argued at the time. And the guy was a great orator, right? This was the winner of a governorship who got into office and wanted to be a reformer, wanted to restore financial sanity to his state. Right? This was the educated guy who had a law degree, who knew the law, who could actually make proposals that were based on law. Right? This wasn't the gun control nut who thinks they could order the confiscation of most guns. No, this was the person who, in a negotiation with different unions, could actually look at the union contract, understand it, look at the state budget, understand it, and could say, hey, what you're asking for, we can't afford. Your union is not the only union in the state. We have other bills to pay that are awfully important, such as the bills for our criminal justice system, right? Such as the bills for our mass transit systems in urban areas, right? Such as, the bills for our law enforcement community, our firefighting community, right? The apparatus that provides social services, right? Mental health counseling. So your union, no matter how valuable it is, needs to realize that there's a bigger world out there. And our state, at the end of the day, is really financially insolvent. Understand, the federal government can print money, right? Can lean on, the Treasury Secretary, can lean on the Fed, can pressure the Fed, can manipulate interest rates. They can't do that at the state level. You understand that? So this governor went all out in trying to cut costs. Right, folks? The state beat it. Right? At the end of the day, and I make a lot of sports videos here. At the end of the day, there's a winner and there's a loser. The state beat it. The bureaucracy won. Pensions in the state remain badly underfunded. Now, folks, that governor was Chris Christie of New Jersey. I want people to do the math, right? Somehow, when I talk to people, they act as if the math doesn't matter. It always does. Because understand, if you can't pay your bill, there are consequences. Future lenders are going to say, no, I'm not going to buy your bonds. I'm not going to lend you money. Right? You didn't pay your last bill. Your prior creditors got stuffed. I can't fund you. You're running a black hole. Right? So your borrowing costs are going to go up. You're going to have to say to future creditors, okay, you know what? I'll make it worth your while. I'll pay more interest. I'll give you more of a profit. Right? It might have to be a secure transaction. I'll give you an interest in these state lands if you lend me the money I need to pay people who were promised the money. So, folks, New Jersey has 9.62 million people Again, 9.62 million people. Folks, it has a debt of $197 billion. Let me repeat that, $197 billion. Just imagine a family of 4 coming in from out of state. And they're going to buy a house in New Jersey. Right? Mom or dad just got a new job that looks like it pays more in New Jersey. The family's going to make it to New Jersey. They're going to make it work. I need for folks to do the math here. $197 billion divided by 9.62 million leaves a debt of at least $20,400 per resident of the state. I did not say per adult. I said per resident. So, let's say mom and dad with 2 kids, one's 10, the other's 8, right? They buy a house in New Jersey. Folks, whatever deal you're getting on the house, let's say you have Johnny Realtor, and he says, hey, you're getting this house under market. Right? You're getting this house $20,000 under market. Just understand that the house is such a losing investment because the first day you're in the house, you're assuming we'll round down the number, not even round it up. Let's say $20,000 in debt per resident. Family of 4. The family is assuming at least $80,000 worth of state debt. Now, folks, I use the phrase state debt because you need to factor in that just living in the United States leaves you with a federal debt bill. On top of the federal debt bill in New Jersey today, each resident owes more than $20,000 to the state. And this is years after Chris Christie, an effective governor. Right? This is the guy who you hope you elect in elections involving states, and there are many that have budgetary problems. Right? Christie was out front. Christie did, to quote Harry Truman, Christie did his damnedest to control costs. Right? You and I know you have a lot of loser governors out there. I won't name them, but you have a lot of loser governors who are running up the bill. Christie was the guy who was fighting his own state legislature, who was fighting public unions. Right? That's the system we're in. And folks, today, years after Christie's tenure in New Jersey, each resident has a state debt of more than $20,000. So let's talk about the illusion of choice. I mentioned New Jersey for a reason, because they have a governor's race. Because that race right now, according to polls, is a jump ball. Right? Realistically, the odds are against either Democrat or Republican candidate being as strident, being as determined, being as out front as Chris Christie was. If you're from New Jersey, this video is going to have a comment section. I invite you to leave your thoughts on the state's current financial condition. Folks, it's worse off than Illinois. It's worse off than California. Right? Leave your thoughts on anything related to the state's fiscal condition, including your thoughts on Chris Christie's performance. So just understand, whether the Democratic candidate is picked as the next governor of New Jersey, whether the MAGA candidate is picked the GOP candidate is picked as the next governor of New Jersey, let's ask a foundational question. I know there's the illusion of choice, but is the status quo sustainable in New Jersey for the next 10 years? You tell us in the comment section of this video. Let's make it interactive. How New Jersey can be saved. Let's ask a more difficult question. Right? Whether New Jersey can be saved. I almost used the word slaved. Right? Can New Jersey be saved? Now, I believe that one of the rough truths in life is that sooner or later the market takes over. Right? Short term, I can ignore economic reality. Short term, I can live on a credit card. Short term, I can ignore the terms of, you name it, student loan debt. I can say, hey, the hell with that. I already got my degree. I'm going to ignore my student loan debt. Car loan debt. I can say, hey, man, I got the ride. I got the driver's license. A lot of people have missed payments. I'm going to ignore the terms of my car loan debt. Right? But what you find out in time is that wages get garnished. Unpaid cars get repossessed. Now, what's more likely? Right? And I think this is the analysis investors need to make. What's more likely? Some good person, right, will pretend as if all the prior governors were good people trying to be effective. Right? This time it's going to be different. The voters are going to elect some good person. And this good person is going to appoint good people around them. They're going to fight the system, the same system that beat Chris Christie. The same system that has left each resident of the state more than $20,000 in debt on a state level. The same system that has New Jersey's state pensions underfunded by a wide margin. Well, this time's going to be different. Right? They're going to, fight the system. There'll be cost cuts. Right? These public unions are going to say, you know what, we'll take pay cuts. We'll take pay cuts to make sure this state can survive. Right? We'll set it up so that current teachers take less, so that future beneficiaries of pension funds can actually receive the money they've been promised. Now, you can believe that's going to happen. Or you can believe there's going to come a time where mom gets that promotion. Mom, living in a different state, gets that promotion to work in New York City. And she's thinking, wow, we could live in New Jersey because I want the kids to have a backyard. Right? Because these trains will enable me to live outside of New York City and to travel to New York City. Right? We won't have to pay the tax increase that Mondami is promising to levy on New York City residents. We can live in Jersey. We can commute. Right? And we'll be fine. Right? This extra $20,000 a year, $40,000 a year is going to help our family's bottom line. And then, of course, they'll realize that they're actually taking on $80,000 worth of debt, $20,000 per person in the family to move to New Jersey. Worse yet, they'll go look at homes in New Jersey and they'll say, hey, well, let's look at the local schools. Then they'll realize that, there isn't enough money to pay for great local schools. They'll realize that public services in the area are underfunded as they are today. And maybe the family then says, hey, you know what? We can't move to Jersey unless the housing costs drop by at least $100,000 per house. Right, folks? That's what happens when markets take over. Right? Economic reality is economic reality. Right? Eventually, a pension that's 20% underfunded can't pay one of 5 pension beneficiaries. Right? Eventually, these jobs with underfunded pensions are going to have a problem recruiting people. Right? Applicants are going to say, man, why should I sign up for this gig when the pension promised to me is illusory? Right, folks? You have a different status quo when bills need to get paid. Right, folks? We're just keeping it real. I'd rather live in a real world than an illusory world. Right? I don't want to believe in politicians with great teeth and great hair who are promising me status quos where each state resident owes the state $20,000. Right? Where the 8-year-old in the family and the 10-year-old in the family each owe the state $20,000. And they aren't going to be working for years. By the time they start working, that $20,000 might become $25,000. Might become $30,000. Right, folks? Understand, too. You have some states with huge debts. And the status quo is such that some of their governors are hinting at future runs for president. So, yeah, this morning I'm online in an email group listening to friends. I think Mondami is going to be a disaster for New York, and I say that as someone who spent my fair amount of time as a teenager riding buses and trains. Right? Just to understand, we live in a world where a candidate for local office can actually claim that he's going to try to compete against Amazon Grocery. Right? He's going to build a grocery store and it's going to give you lower prices. Really, are the prices you're paying at Amazon Grocery among the highest prices you're paying for anything? I thought Amazon grew by offering value. Right, folks? I'm an Amazon grocery shopper. I don't think I could get the prices at my local supermarkets. I'm in Northern California, not New York City these days, but I don't think I could get the prices at my local supermarket that I can get online at Amazon Grocery. Right? Let me add a further disclaimer. I don't own any Amazon right now, at least not that I know of, right? You have an ETF, who knows what's in it, but I have owned some Amazon stock in the past, right? I'm not here shilling for Amazon. Understand, in New York, you have a Costco, as people in Harlem know, right? But yet, understand, you have a portion of the population that falls for offers like that. Really, in New York, with all of its public unions, some mayoral candidate is actually getting votes talking about, starting a city-run grocery store and competing against some of the savviest retailers in the United States, and your neighbor and people living across the street actually think that that's doable? That somehow they're going to be in that store and the price of food is going to be appreciably less than what you can get online at Amazon Grocery? Folks, it's ridiculous. Right? So let me just say my own view, and I'm just speaking for myself. Right? I'm not even saying, look, all people of a certain ilk believe the way I do. Right? But understand, there's a silence out there. People are hushed. Right? There are folks who are shorting the market. We now have prediction markets. Right? I'm sure there are many people who know New Jersey's financial condition is a mess, and that's after an effective governor, Chris Christie, tried to change the system. Right? You know it's a mess. You understand there are going to be people out there who, I have one friend who keeps saying, oh, there's an oligarchy, right? There's some talking points. Billionaires need to pay their fair share, right? Yada, yada, yada. Right, folks? Now that you have prediction markets, you need to understand what a breakthrough the legality of these prediction markets is for the general public. Right? If there are markets, and there will be, of people who are shorting New Jersey, right? Shorting a state's ability to pay its financial obligations, right? Shorting the housing market in certain areas. And there are many in the United States that are poorly run. There's a distinct chance that those people are going to be on the winning side of the play. So let me close this video by just asking a question. How much choice do the people of New Jersey actually have in this governor's race? Right? Which one of these candidates is going to be better than Chris Christie was as governor? Right? How are they going to get from under the current bill that has each resident in the state, that newborn in the maternity ward, they owe $20,000. Right? They owe $20,000. Right, folks? How's any politician going to get you from under this debt? Right? Internationally, you have places like New Jersey. Right? Didn't we just have to do things to help Malay in Argentina? Right? Think of the Perón supporters in places like Argentina. Right? There are these groups that always want more money spent, but go silent when there's any real talk about actually paying the bill. Right, folks? There are markets out there where people understand that the debt being issued by some of these places is going to take a haircut for folks to get paid. Right, folks? New Jersey looks financially insolvent to me. So what choice do the voters of New Jersey have? I would argue not a real one. Right? The situation is unsustainable. Eventually there is going to be a reckoning. Right? If you know someone who had a lot of credit card debt and then reached the end of the line where they couldn't pay the credit cards, their credit rating got a hit, their credit dried up, then you know what's coming. Right? I had a friend. He parked his car. When he went back to the car was gone. He thought the car was stolen. No, the car was repossessed. Right, folks? That's what happened, right? I was hearing the story. I thought the guy was living large. Came to find out the guy was actually living on credit. For many people watching this video, that could be your current state government, right? Have both eyes open. Believe in markets more than politicians. Understand there's resistance out there. Everyone thinks that there's some big Tea Party movement that can galvanize the public, that can take over, that can have people on TV, that can change the public mood. With regard to the federal government, let me ask the question, where's the Tea Party today? Right? We just had the Big Beautiful Bill, something the Tea Party would never have supported. Where are they today? Political movements come and go. Debt remains. Jersey, you need to figure out a way to get that newborn in the state out from under a $20,000 per newborn debt. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Everyone hates the person. Everyone hates the person who shorts the market. Right, folks? Those people are heroes because they're the ones revealing the truth about the market. Right? I don't see a Chris Christie in this New Jersey's governor's race. Even if there was one, the odds of them being successful are slim. Right? Understand, too, when I say $20,000, I'll leave you with this. $20,000 debt per resident. I'm just talking about the state debt. I haven't even included the federal debt. Food for thought. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.